Hi, everyone. This is Kat. Welcome to the Men You Love to podcast. Today, I am talking to David Maywald, who is the author of a book named The Relentless War on Masculinity. And just the title itself stopped me dead in my tracks when I saw it on Facebook. And I thought, this is a man that can teach me and share his wisdom with me because there's so much I am still learning about masculinity as I work with men. And I'm not sure who added who on Facebook, but here we are. We're friends on Facebook, and I asked you to be on my podcast to talk about your book. So welcome, David. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be here, Kat, and it's so good that we can connect across the vast oceans and geography. And I was drawn to your generosity of spirit, and I think we were definitely meant to cross paths. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with you.
Thank you for saying that. And I'm in Canada, and it's almost 2 p.m. And David, it's like 6 a.m. for you. I just so appreciate you waking up and being so alert. You would never know that it's 6 a.m. for you and just taking the time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, I often get up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. to connect with people in North America, so sort of got in that routine.
Wow, well, we appreciate you. That is quite like the sacrifice you're making with your sleep. Let's dive right in. I honestly, like I said in the intro, when I saw the title, The Relentless War on Masculinity, I've made posts about how there is a real life cr masculinity crisis. Like I've used those words, but when I read the title of your book, it just hit me right in the chest because that is exactly how I feel about what's happening to masculinity in this world. And do you want to just tell me how you got to write this book, where it came from, how long it took, and like this is something really, really special that you've created here.
So the title, using the word war, it's been polarizing. Some people relate to it, other people reject it. But it was inspired actually by three books that I've read. There's Christina Hoff Sommers, who wrote The War Against Boys in 2000. So that's 26 years ago. Susan Benker wrote The War on Men in 2013. And I loved reading Nancy Pearcey's The Toxic War on Masculinity. And interestingly, three female authors have written about war on boys and men and masculinity. Why haven't there been more male authors using that term? Pushing back, boldly speaking up and standing up for our inherent masculinity. I find that really fascinating. So I didn't come up with it. I'm just sort of following and standing on the shoulders of some great writers and thought leaders of the past. And I mean, certainly, having children 7 or 8 years ago, having a daughter and a son, that was quite fundamental in my sort of worldview, thinking about the future, wanting a better world for them to grow up in. But the book itself, it was really inspired by the way that I was raised. I mean, my parents were religious. They were very strongly interested in social justice, but really applied that lens and those tools to women's empowerment, to feminism, and to oppression of women by men. Whereas the age that I grew up in, I saw a lot of girls and women being advanced in education and benefiting from quotas in the workplace and other things. And I think we've really, our societies, Australia, Canada, US, UK, they've fundamentally changed in the last 40 years. I mean, what I write about in the book, which be hard to see there, dropping in and out.
Yeah.
Um, but what I write about in the book is that in the 1980s, I sensed that there was an equality, this sort of balance, this rough, imperfect, um, you know, symmetry and appreciation of the masculine and the feminine. But then in the last 30 or 40 years, we've really gone way into overreach and extreme and that pendulum. The pendulum just kept going. It
It's
kept
like
going in one
disappeared. It's
direction.
gone.
Yeah. And I sort of write about how the pendulum has only ever had one half a swing. It's gone from one side to the other side.
Yeah.
Whereas if you think about like a healthy system, maybe there's a pendulum slightly shifting, a little bit around the middle. And so that's quite a good analogy, to think about where we've gone as a society. And I'm sure you'd agree, it's much healthier to appreciate both, to have balance, to be in sync, and to work together collaboratively.
Yeah, thank you. And I use this pendulum and I'm just like, the pendulum has swung the other way and it's literally disappeared off the spectrum. It's like in the clouds. I don't even know where it is. So I use it all the time. And not only is it beneficial for us as men and women to look at it, but I'm looking at future generations. I'm looking at children, I'm looking at families, and I'm looking at the boys and I'm looking at the girls because they're going to need each other. And
Mm,
what's happening right now is going to affect them. So I think there is so much value in looking at this. And I just want to touch on one point. You were talking about the books that were written about masculinity and the war on masculinity. And yeah, I have the top 15 books written about that. 14 of them are by women. And I don't
mm.
understand it. So when I came to do my petition for domestic violence and all that stuff, I thought, how is it 2025 and no one on earth, no man, men know that this is a gap, has thought, I'll do this. I'll start a petition. I'll speak up. I'll do this. Why is it the women? And I mean, great, but why is that?
So there's a lot more stigma and censorship and cancellation of male voices than of female voices. And this goes to the heart of our cherishing and platforming and elevating females. It's deeply embedded in us as individuals and as a culture that we protect not just women, but children as well. But importantly, the culture elevates girls, young women, women, childbearing, the reproduction of the species. And any culture that doesn't do that has existential risks. So that's become embedded in us. It might even be like neural pathways and other things, but it's so deeply embedded that we don't even often see it. We don't even often catch ourselves. I'm talking about men and women. Men unconsciously preferencing and biasing and uplifting girls and women. They often don't even see that. And so, as a female speaking in this space, you've almost got this insurance policy, like this extra protection around you, that you can say some things and do some things that would be very hard for men to do. I mean, I I think it's a double standard and I think it's really unhealthy. And to be honest, I felt an obligation to speak up because so many other men felt that they couldn't, felt that they were being silenced, felt that no one was listening to them. And there are some, amazing male voices. I'm sure you're aware of the speakers, the thought leaders, the writers, and others, but they're few and far between. And I really felt it was time for men to lean in, to step forward, to take ownership of what it is to transition to manhood, what masculinity means in our contemporary societies, and just even though you're going to be called names, you're going to be dumped on, we still have to do it. Just because it's hard and unpleasant, you don't shirk away from it. You've still got to do it.
Yeah. You said something that really touched my heart, and that is, I feel called when men have shared their pain with me and I was aware of this gap and all these problems, I feel called to do something with it. There is no part of me that could stand by and not speak up on behalf of men. And I get a lot of hate from men and from women saying, who are you to speak on behalf of men? You're not a man, right? So, but I also know that I assumed that no man wanted to be the face of domestic violence against men. And that's why he didn't take it on. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do that because there's so much stigma and there's so much shame. And I hate that there's a privilege for women to be able to speak up and share their voice. Um, because it shouldn't be that way. And I think that feminism, it's not equal across the world. In Europe, women have gained the same rights and protection that women in North America, but the women in Europe have not destroyed the men in Europe. And I find that there's huge differences in North America and the relationship between men and women and how the cost of raising women has been to crush men under the weight of that. And I feel like that hasn't translated into some other parts of the world where women have gained the same rights as they have in North America, if not even more freedoms and the same rights. without, and the cost wasn't to destroy men at the same time. So do you find that it's the same all over the world, or do you see the same difference in different parts of the world that I see?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting observation. I've seen some of that nuance, but not as clearly as you have. And I would just encourage people to think about what the principles are and what's happening to society. And I think probably that social media hasn't helped, the fragmentation of people into smaller groups and connecting with like-minded echo chambers across geographies. Um, I I sometimes call out men who are so focused on feminist voices or misandry or pointing out flaws in other people. I mean, it's got a place, but it's a pretty tiny place. And really, the path forward isn't, it's not chucking rocks at each other. It's embracing each other. It's accepting difference. It's finding ways to heal that are relevant for each person and moving forwards constructively. So I just hope that we can.
Yeah.
I really do. I hope that there are enough people of goodwill out there, sensible men and women who can come together because I'm worried there'll still be fringes, even 5, 10, 20 years. I'm worried there'll still be, pockets of men and women who are hurt or traumatized or have other really deep emotional and other experiences. But I really hope that in the center we can move forward for our children.
Yeah. And the other thing is that none of the people that have participated in creating these systems and narratives have done it consciously. I think it's all been just part of a movement and not thinking and being a part of something that was created for us and just going with it and thinking that we're doing good when actually we're not seeing the damage that we're doing. So I also don't think that none of this was really intentional. And everyone just participated in creating this. But now
Mm.
we are, like you say, responsible for looking at it for men and women and for the children and fixing it.
The stories that we tell ourselves are really important because if you get stuck in nihilism and despair and depression and withdrawal and loneliness, those stories can be really negative. They can send you off in a direction that's not good for you and it's not good for your relationships. Um, so we really, how do we course correct? How do we pull out of that? You know, we have to help each other. That's why I'm so emboldened about the positive messages. That's why I started celebrating masculinity. I wanted it to be really intentionally created around optimism and hope and aspiration and positive narratives, just to provide something that isn't there very much, in our culture, and provide hope to other men and other women that there's a way we can work together and step forwards.
It's beautiful, David. Thank you. Is it okay with you if I just share the top 5 points that I got from your book? Um, and I'll just read us like a sentence from each of the 5 points. And I really wanted to focus on the first two and then dive deep because I have so many questions for you. So the first one is masculinity needs direction, not suppression. Second one is father presence shapes identity and formation. And by father presence, we mean not just fathers, but male role models. You were very specific about that. Number 3 is purpose anchors male mental health. Number 4, cultural messaging creates confusion about manhood. And those signals are very mixed. And 5, brotherhood and mentorship build resilient men. So the connection of men between men, they are lifelines for you guys. And they are so important. And I see that. And I actually think that my biggest role in helping men is to be the bridge for the men that don't trust other men, that are not confident into going into male groups. They trust me. I bring them together, and I'm the bridge that creates that for them. Because I will no matter what I do, I will never ever replace the connection that a man can get and the support from another man. I'm very, very well aware of that. So can we talk about masculinity needs direction, not suppression? and how we have labeled masculine traits as bad or negative when they're actually not.
Yeah, we've led with the traits. I mean, but there are many different ways that boys and men and masculinity have been pushed down or denigrated or criticized or deconstructed or so many other ways, so many other negative things. At the same time as girls and women have been uplifted and femininity has been, cherished and put as an ideal. So there are many different ways that we have separated these two, and the double standards are really prevalent and deep and enduring. And so, what I encourage people to do is to become more aware of those double standards. And there are lots of technical explanations in the book and descriptions of different ways that that happens, but they're all aspects of asymmetry and double standards. And when you can bring more of your conscious thinking more quickly to bear on that, then it allows you to think about the costs and benefits and to think about the implications of perpetuating that thinking and perpetuating that mode of interacting with other people. So I think both of us would agree that there are clusters of behaviors and traits around males and females, that there are essentially innate um, strengths, interests, preferences. It's physiological, it's psychological, emotional, hormonal, in many different perspectives that there's clustering. That doesn't, of course, there's overlap in many of these. It's
Yeah.
like height. There are high women and short men, but there's overlaps, and it's sort of like, two overlapping curves. So honoring both of those is important. And actually, a couple of days ago on Chinese New Year, I made the reference to the ancient Chinese philosophy of yin and yang. Honoring both. Neither is superior, neither is inferior. And you have to have both of them weaving and dancing together and complementing each other. That's the real essence. The West lost that. We've lost real affinity and appreciation of that. But for the sake of our children, our sons and our daughters, we really need to turn back to that ancient wisdom and appreciate just how enduring that is, because it's still programmed in each of us as a male or a female. So that's I guess how we can reorient to a healthier conception of masculine and feminine.
You're making me tear up because I so deeply, deeply honor the masculine. And I see the ways in which the masculine is just brilliant and dominates the physical realm and the physical world. And so when I look at boys and they're told to sit at schools, and when they can't sit still and they want to be physical and they want to move with their body and learn with their body, it breaks my heart that any of them grow up to think that they weren't good enough in school because they didn't fit into the mold that's more like created for girls. So I think that's one of the big ways that I think we squash that masculine part, and it just literally breaks my heart because you guys, without men, we would have nothing. Like I wouldn't have this table that I'm sitting at, and we wouldn't have the internet, and we wouldn't have like you guys made this. You guys dominate the physical realm. Um, and I just like I honor men so much. And I think that we are meant to complement each other. And one of the things that I notice with couples, because I do some work with couples as well, is when it comes to you talk about the stoic, the man that, keeps to himself, contains his emotion. You're also problem solvers. And I think there's a lot of danger when women push their expectations on their partner or expect their partner to react and act and feel and think the same way that they do. We're not meant to think the same. Women, they want to vent about the same issue 50 times over and over. You guys open the tab in your mind that's like, there's a problem. You guys come up with a solution. You close the tab, and here we are yapping. And then when you give us a solution, we're like, oh, well, I just wanted you to listen. You're like, well, what's the point of saying the same thing over and over when I have a solution for you? If you just did it, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And the truth is that we need both and that we complement each other. But I think there's a real danger when women expect their partners to behave the way they do. They're not meant to. And I think that women are missing out on the beauty and the impact that the true masculine can have in your life. I think they're missing out on that.
So I describe gynocentrism in my book, and that's essentially, a society that preferences the traits and interests and strengths of females um, over the same of males. And I was really inspired by one of my heroes, Tom Golden, who has a Substack called Men Are Good. And I mean, the reason it's called Men Are Good is that there's so much of this social programming and denigration of boys and men and masculinity that he's taking the countercultural approach of actually saying, no, I don't go down that path. I'm going to proudly assert that men are good. I mean, it often springs to my mind, we should also say women are good. But in a sense, it's a bit redundant because we've been saying women are good for, 6 decades. And so, I mean, this is why I sort of had a point 6, 8, 10 years ago when I could have doubled down on being an ally of women, a supporter of female empowerment and other things. But I just felt I would have been one of millions, doing and saying those things. And that's why I really branched off and started becoming much more vocal about boys' education and men's health and longevity and these other things, because there are just so many fewer voices and much weaker voices in that space. And yeah, so on cherishing and honoring both, it's a more nuanced conversation, and it requires that acceptance of difference, but also it stretches inclusion a bit further and acceptance and tolerance further than a lot of people seem to have been comfortable with because of the tribalism and the fragmentation and echo chamber effect of modern communications. Unfortunately, we've sort of pulled into those smaller groups, and guys complain about women in one group and women complain about men in another group. And there's probably a time and a place for that, but not all the time and every place, and not on your phone constantly, buzzing at you, constantly reinforcing those messages. So inclusion, it does, inclusion means uh, males, white people, Christians, it's all expansive. It's not, inclusion isn't selectively championing your favorite groups and pushing down your non-favorite groups. We have to genuinely live that inclusiveness and lean into acceptance more willingly than we have been able to accept the difference in the past.
Thank you for saying that. And I think the world is obsessed with inclusion right now, but somehow is blind to the fact that we are excluding 4 billion people from a lot of the human issues that are happening in this world. Half of the world's population is excluded from so many studies, so many support systems, so many education systems, so many trials, so many surveys, so many ways that they can benefit from the supports in the society. They are just completely excluded. Meanwhile, the other half is just wanting to like include everyone else while excluding half of the world's population, is what I see.
You see
And
that at the United
I'm gonna say
Nations.
it.
They have 13 days. There are 13 days on the UN calendar to celebrate girls and women. Well, that's great. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't want any of those scrapped, but I want us to celebrate and honor and cherish boys and men. I mean, there is an international day for men. It's the 19th of November. There's an International Boys Day on the 16th of May. Hardly anyone knows about that one, but I feel a connection to that. I've asked the school, what are you doing this
Yes.
year to celebrate International Boys Day? And again, they'll say, what's that? When's that? It's the 16th of May. Here are some, materials. You can put up some posters. let's have some positive messaging about
Yeah,
the
let's
boys at
start talking
school.
about it.
Like they're equal in dignity. They deserve opportunities. And, we can't pillory and hold them accountable for things that might have happened 100 years ago. We have to uplift everyone.
I did not want to talk about this, but can I share a frustration of mine with you and get your input on
Mm,
it? So when I started talking about domestic violence against men, so I've gone on podcasts like radio, interviews, like media, whatever. I made it such a commitment and such a boundary for myself that I will not discuss women. And almost every single time when the issue of domestic violence comes up, there's a question of, there is a statement of, well, we're not trying to take anything from women. There's like a defense that happens immediately when you start talking about men, that people feel like they have to mention women and defend women at the same time. When we're talking about domestic violence statistics, there's questions about where they compare with the women. And I made such a boundary to say that I am here to talk about men's experience and men's pain. And I don't need to validate it by comparing it to women. I don't need to seek anyone's approval. The numbers don't have to be higher or lower or the same for me to have the right to speak about it. It's because people are trying to find out, well, is it a lot? Is it a little? Is it a big issue? Like, are women still struggling more? Of course, women are struggling more. So there's that immediate pull to make sure that you say something about women because we're not allowed to just talk about men. We're not allowed to just say men need love and men have no support and they have no safe spaces and they have, list all the things that they're missing. And as far as supports, without then going to talk about women. And I feel like that's everyone's reaction. And it's so frustrating. So I really made it a point to shut down questions and say, I'm here to talk about men. And I don't need to compare the men's numbers to the women for them to be valuable and for them to be validated by you. It's not a comparison. This truth exists, and I just want to talk about it without comparing it to the women. Do you find that when you talk about men, there is this pull to somehow say something about women to make it acceptable?
yeah, I sensed that more a couple of years ago, 2023, 2024. I think this circles back to that comment that I made about the inherent bias that all people have of cherishing and protecting females. I think it's really deeply embedded into all of us. Some people feel it more or they express that a lot more than others. Sometimes I talk about completely random topics and there'll be this comment, stop killing women.
Just
And I'm like, so you're talking about, like boys and education. I'm like, stop killing women. Okay. Right.
okay.
And it's a slogan. It's a validation. It does come from an aspect of, deep protection and morality. But it's also super immature. Like,
Thank
what
you.
we can only think about one thing. We can only focus on one thing. There's only one socially important goal. That's complete bullshit. Come on.
Thank you for saying
There's
that.
millions of different things we're all working towards. Like our societies are incredibly complex. We are trying to deal with challenges. We're trying to pull things back together. We're trying to mend from trauma, and then we're trying to grow in new areas. We're doing this just such crazy range of different things. But as soon as you start talking about male issues, particularly male victims, suddenly the brain only has an ability to think about one thing. Like, come on, that's childish and immature, and that's not the role model that we need to be for our children and the next generations. So, I mean, I don't give that extra oxygen. I don't acknowledge it or engage in those conversations. Unfortunately, I think there are a small proportion of people that just aren't open to being influenced or shifted by evidence. It's really unfortunate. I think it says more about them than it says about us. We can respond in ways that are accepting and principled and human and warm and constructive, but we don't need to be dragged down by the worst, like lack of thinking, the worst lack of foresight. So we need to keep speaking up and move forward and have the challenging, difficult conversations. I think with this space has moved a lot further forward. For example, that book that Routledge published earlier last year, the Routledge Handbook on male victimization in intimate partner violence. That's got 3 female editors. I think it was 31 contributors across 5 continents. So it's an incredible reference and a resource for the wide range of ways that men and sometimes boys are victims of different forms of violence and abuse. Um, it's it's a resource that people in public policy, positions of power, and decision makers need to read. They need to see that because this this academic research, this has been collected for decades. We have a lot of really rich data. It's not, it's not a Duluth model. It's not female victim, male perpetrator. It's, as we all know, it's a lot more complicated than this. That model can't explain the high levels of violence in lesbian relationships. If you've got a preconceived idea about man bad, woman good, well, yikes, there's a lot of data that really
It's going
challenges
to shatter that.
those underlying assumptions. So I think we have to be the bigger people and continue to speak up with conviction and honesty and referencing facts and evidence and persuade the persuadable people. And I think it's just sad that there are others who are so in the mode of repeating lines and mindlessly trying to bring down others. But, Kat, I mean, this conversation shows that growth and moving forward is eminently possible, and that's the path we should all get onto.
Thank you for saying that. That was very inspiring. Um, and it's just something I've experienced even with people that want to help and want to have this conversation. And I think you're right. It's so deeply ingrained in us to prioritize a woman's pain, is how I'm going to say it, over a man's, right? So if it's a million women that have a certain disease, but 500,000 men, then it's just like that's going to be more important. And this is going to be lost because it's just women are being prioritized. And I think that's a huge reflection of a woman's pain being more of a priority than a man's in our society.
I mean, it raises moral questions and intellectual questions. And you remember the veil of ignorance? That's something I learned in political science. You'd want to set the settings, not knowing who you will be, whether you'll be rich or poor, whether you'll be male or female, whether you'll be from one background or another. And the real challenge for some people in this space is they can't work out their reaction until they know the biological sex of the protagonist. So they don't know whether they'll be sympathetic or critical until they know whether the victim is male or female. And what that really unearths is a deep-seated bias, right? So if you can't work out how you respond or whether you're compassionate or whether you're gonna, come down like a ton of bricks on someone until you know their sex, that says something about you as a person that you're clearly not equally validating of others around you.
Yeah, that speaks volumes. That's crazy to hear. Um, do you want to talk about the second point and that's the fathers playing such an important role in the activation of or initiation of the masculine with the boy and just the role models. And you said something really beautiful that I want you to repeat about that activation and that mentoring from a father figure. Just before we started recording, do you remember what you said?
Yes, about the fathers and the group of loving male
Yeah.
elders. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a father of a son and a father of a daughter. And so it goes pretty deep in me, emotionally and in terms of the love that I have for both of them. I was really moved by a book that I read by Celia Lashley, who, like me, had a son and a daughter. And you've got a son and a couple of daughters. Cecilia Lashley was reflecting on the path that boys have through adolescence, the really dangerous, uh, challenging, what she calls the bridge of adolescence. So she turned it into a metaphor. So there's this teenage boy, like he has to walk across this bridge. That's the only path for him to get from immature, boyhood, eventually way down the path to manhood. It's not like it's not just having a period. It's not, having a download of the man code or whatever. It is a journey. It takes years. And during that path, that bridge to adolescence, the imagery that Celia painted was that the mother stands on the riverbank, that there's no healthy way that she can hold his hand and like drag him across that bridge. The role of the father and loving male elders is to be there at a distance and to lean in when they can see that the boy needs some guidance. If he slips and falls, to quickly respond and to pick him up and pull him back on and dust him off and give him the confidence to keep stepping forwards. And it's a really powerful metaphor. It's not perfect, it's not completely academically validated, but it's a really powerful image to conceive your role as a parent. And I do see that being different. I mean, I bring things to my daughter, but I'm not a mother to my daughter. I can never be a mother to my daughter. And I bring different, complementary, unique things to my son's life that my wife will never bring to my son's life. And when I was this is one book I'd highly recommend. He will be okay by Celia Lashley. Um, but there's also very other big influence on my thinking, which is David Gilmour's Manhood in the Making, which is from 1990, and it's a seminal like classic of thinking about men, and it's an ethnographic cross-cultural study. So it looks for similarities across many different cultures around the world. And there's this repeated, pattern of male elders stepping in. And often they have to drag the boy away from his mother. Like the easy thing here is to cling onto your mother because there's comfort and safety and um, you know these men are going to drag you away and they're going to teach you some pretty raw and challenging things about the world, about how mature manhood operates. They're going to take your emotional and physical and social development to the next level. Boys find that really scary and frightening and challenging. They know it's going to be super onerous. It's not, I mean, you get dragged into doing things you don't like chores and reading books or school assignments. This is way, way more confronting than any other thing that you'll face in your life. What they're saying is, you are just a boy. You're not in the role of provider and protector. To get to that point, you need to fundamentally transition from selfish needs and short term to community, supporting families, to being a community builder, to make things for other people. And they're really powerful visions I have as a parent that drive me to strive, to be a better father. We're not always going to be the perfect parent. No one is. We're all going to make mistakes along the way. But having those in mind can help us to course correct and, to keep doing things that will be valuable for our children. And hopefully one day they'll appreciate it. They might not appreciate it today, but hopefully one day in the fullness of time, they'll look back and say, thank you so much for helping me on my journey.
Thank you, David. You've made me cry twice today, and I haven't yet cried on a podcast. So this is awesome. I couldn't help with the imagery of the bridge and the mother could possibly not hold on to him, her boy that's going on this journey to be a man. And no matter who is supporting him and who the male role models are, she cannot go where he's going. And I see this in our society, and I see the harm and the gap that's left when the boy doesn't have anyone to go with him. Because the boy's going on the bridge, right? Like he's going on the journey, whether someone's with him or not, right? So if he has to make that journey alone, it's going to be a lot harder and it's probably going to take a lot longer. Do you agree?
And there are bigger risks along the way.
Yeah.
Like as young men get exposed to the whole range of porn and
Yep.
alcohol and drugs and relationships and other things, it's a really fraught, dangerous, challenging time. And you probably know the difference in cognitive development. So boys and young men can be, a year behind, a couple of years. So they might not be as, you know, mature as the same aged girls and women. So
Do
they
you,
they need those loving elder men around them who've lived that, who have real experiences that can be drawn on, and
yeah.
not just the father either. I mean, the boy won't always turn to the father, so it's the group that's important, not any individual.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to remember. Do you think if we use that imagery, that if a boy doesn't have any males to support him and go on that journey with him, that he might just get a little far on the bridge and then run back home and never take that trip and just stay in the comfort of his mother and then a nurturing and just not go and not mature and not become a man and not be initiated?
You will get more man boys,
Okay.
huge
Because I feel like that's what's
physically.
happening. I'm
Yeah,
correcting myself now that I think about it. I don't think that they all, if they're by themselves, I think some of them run back and come home
yeah,
because
like
it's too
30-year-old men
overwhelming to
living at
do
home. Yeah, like playing games,
it. Hmm.
selfish, not contributing to the people around them. They're less likely to reach that point of mature manhood, and they're more at risk of going off that path and having big deviations from it. I mean, in a way, uh, the traditional norms around having children earlier forced men to face up to becoming mature. And there's this incredible motivation of your own children in um, being responsible, in having a healthy uh, way of living and treating other people. By delaying that, I mean it is very narcissistic and selfish. It pushes that off, and maybe it means you won't ever become a father or a mother. But as difficult as parenting is, and I'm sure you've had many
Yeah.
experiences of this, I've certainly found parenting to be more challenging than any other thing in my life. But it did force some really positive changes, and self-reflection and growing up and other things. And in a way, it's good to go through those early in life. You'll get the benefit of it for more of your life.
Absolutely. And now I'm just thinking about, the isolation and loneliness crisis that men are facing and the fact that so many are not in relationships. And, there's a lot of growth and transformation that you can and maturing that you can go through as a man to become a man and become a leader and think about legacy and being a protector and a provider and all those things. But I think that a lot of the times you don't get the opportunity to put them into practice until you are in a relationship so they can be ideas and and thoughts and commitments and values and morals. But until you actually have the opportunity to be the leader, be the protector, be the provider, right? Like that's actually how you become it by doing it versus just thinking about it and wanting it and having the necessary skills. So, do you think the fact that a lot of men are single and don't get married and possibly don't have kids, do you think that they have, hmm, they can develop those masculine traits without having the opportunity to take care of a wife and a child?
I guess fewer are likely to fully develop that mature masculinity, and they, in a lot of cases, are looking for excuses not to do that. This is I'll go back to that image of the boy clinging onto his mother desperately. And okay, so there was a bunch of men there. They came to pull him away. Why did they do that? Like they didn't do it because they wanted to abuse him or, like it was some hazing ritual. They did that because they knew in their heart that that was the right thing, that that was what had to happen. That was what had happened for generation after generation. They knew they were ticking down to this date, and they knew there could be, he could there could be violence, there could be, real resistance to that. They did that out of the goodness of their spirit and their heart and their intuition. So, in a world that has really denigrated and undermined fatherhood, culturally, legally, it fundamentally diminished the role of fatherhood. That that process, the healthy process of maturation, has been disrupted for many boys and young men, and for the fathers and the older men. I say to older men, step in. Like you are needed as coaches and mentors, as leaders and guides. For heaven's sakes, like think about the younger people here. So it's from both sides. The older men need that just as much as young men need it. But if we're disrupting that process that has worked in humanity for thousands of years, we're fundamentally going in the wrong direction. And we're not honoring fatherhood and motherhood. We're not doing what our children and young people need for healthy lives.
Yeah, and I think our role as a parent is to prepare our child to live on their own and to be the best person they can be and to have all the skills and all the tools that they're going to need to live a happy life and take care of the next generation. And that's a huge responsibility. So we're not here to raise happy children. We're here to raise happy adults. And sometimes that means kicking their ass and taking them on a journey that they may not want to go on because you know what the world will ask of them, and you want to make sure that they know how to be that man.
The feminization of psychology and the overemphasis of emotions and feelings, I think it's taken us down the wrong sort of path. Like marriages aren't happy 24/7. Being a parent isn't about like feeling fantastic all the time. These are processes, you grow from them. You don't enter them just because you think it will bring you unending happiness. And, you don't enter them. I mean, maybe some people do, believing that they will be, validated and happy with their partner for the rest of their lives. Maybe that's not the role of marriage and parenting. Maybe it's like an alchemical process of taking, waste materials and turning them into gold slowly over time, by refining them and smoothing the rough edges and growing and developing and facing challenges. I mean, you certainly don't become a parent because it's financial or, easy. It's the hard path. And JB said this years and years ago, you know, don't shy away from difficult things. What sort of person will you be at the end of that? if you only, spend time in pure, happy and short-term emotion. So that overemphasis of emotion and feelings for kids
And
and in
comfort,
psychology,
right? To
yeah,
be comfortable versus uncomfortable.
yeah, it's the wrong path. It's a delusion. It's a false god. It's a false idol. And that's very hard for children to accept because obviously it would be much easier and more fun to selfishly focus on play and what they'd like to do in the now and here, the here and now. But yeah, this is why the traditional norms around parenting and marriage were so powerful and they sustained societies for hundreds and thousands of years.
Well, you said some really powerful things that I agree with like 1,000%. And a lot of the times I feel like I'm the only one saying it. So I feel so validated by the fact that you see the same thing. And one of the things we talked about the fact that women expect men to react in feminine ways and to show their emotion and stuff like that. Like that's exactly what you just said. But the other thing that I've been very aware of as a single mom for the last 10 years, full-time single mother, my son has a relationship with his father, but it's up and down. It's, they go through seasons, right? And their relationship is not up for me to manage right now. They manage their own relationship. But I realized 10 years ago, when we first split up, my son didn't talk to me for 2 weeks because he lost his father. He completely hated me. And I understood and I took it. Because it didn't matter why. That's exactly how he felt, and I needed to understand it and validate it. And so I signed him up for karate. I thought discipline and putting his anger and his frustration into moving his body and learning how to be disciplined to like exert that energy, how to protect himself, how to, protect others. I thought that was a great thing. And it really, really worked. And so now I realize that no matter what and I think women need to be told this. I think not only are boys missing out because they don't have that male to go with them on this journey, but I think when they go back to their mom, I think that's where some of the damage is done as well. And I think it's because we are nurturing, we are compassionate, we are not able to give them the structure and the discipline that they would get from a man. It's just like, it doesn't matter how great of a single mother you are going, he is going to be missing a lot. There is nothing that you can do that will make up for the loss of not having the male companions to take him on this journey. And I've accepted that and having a lot of conversations with my son about that as he's growing up. And so I find ways to encourage his masculine. So I give him responsibilities like he's the man of the house. So he protects the house. So every night, without me asking, he started checking all the windows and the doors. And I'm like, well, this is what a protector does. Like I'm encouraging and supporting his masculine traits as they are showing up in him to want to do. And if I go out on a date, I ask him what time should I be home, and he says 10 o'clock. And do you know that I'm home at fucking 10 o'clock because I answer to a 17-year-old who has my safety in his mind and wants to go to bed. And I respect him so much. I respect and nurture and honor that masculine side of him that I will be home at 10 o'clock. And if I'm 2 minutes late, I will call him and I will say I'm on my way. And so he's the protector of the house for me and his sisters. Um, and he's got other responsibilities, but there's one time that he was feeling sick and he had a 1 hour job to do, like cut someone's grass. He was like 16 and he woke up with a sore throat and he had like half an hour to go. And he was like, Mom, I really feel like shit, right? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, honey. Like, I'll make you some chicken soup. And like, do you want some syrup? Like, what can I get you, right? Do you want some water? Like, oh, I'm so sorry, you're sick. And I babied him for about 5 minutes and I was the mom. And then I left and I came back into the room and I was like, and now I'm going to be your dad. It's a sore throat. Your word means everything. So you get up and you're going to go put in 1 hour of work. And then when you come home, you can rest. You're not going to die. You can do this. Right. And then he's like, Mom. And I'm like, it's not mom, it's dad. So, so I'm so aware of all these areas in which I'm lacking that I'm really, really trying to make an effort to channel even 1% of that to encourage those masculine traits,
Mm.
for him to have some of that in his daily life. And I think this is really important for single moms to know that the more you love and nurture a boy, you're actually hurting him, is what I'm trying to say. There comes an age where the too much nurturing and too much softness and too much compassion and love is hurting him, and he needs a different type of mentorship and love.
Yeah, it's really challenging, isn't it? And I mean, it is impossible for one person to be a village, but I, you know, um, uh, recognize, the efforts and lengths that you're going to, which is really an expression of mother's love and very thoughtful and considered. I'm aware of an organisation here locally in Australia that does mentoring for teenage boys, and about three-quarters of their inbound inquiries are from single moms with teenage boys, and they're often from disadvantaged communities, vulnerable communities, Indigenous and others. Um, and that program does supply a mentor, but it's only catch-ups like once a month or once every 2 months. I mean, it's just not enough. It's where's the casual interactions,
The
like walking to the
consistency, right? And the
shops,
daily.
yeah, like at the bus stop or at school or down at the supermarket or whatever, and where's the different perspectives in there and being available, at any time. I mean, there are a lot of different needs there and
Yeah.
and ways to respond and so yeah, I mean, there's a role here for other older men, mature men, and other fathers to lean in and to express that love to boys and young men who are at that stage. It can be through religious communities, having
Mhm.
church. I mean, it can be through sport. I really encourage, like I said, older men to coach.
Yep.
Like,
Coaches
boys
or
in
senseis
particular
or whatever.
need you. Girls need you too. I found out one of my mates was a coach for his daughter's netball team, and he had never played netball before. He's an Indian guy. He didn't had no no overlap with netball through his whole life. But as a way of connecting to his daughter and seeing
Yep.
her friends and understanding the relationships,
Yep.
he did that for several years. And I was like, wow, that's a father going to a
Great
real length.
lengths. Yeah.
Yeah, the love there, the expression of love through actions was a really powerful story for me, and I've used that as inspiration, for fathering as well. But I think what you're doing is really needed, and
Thank you. And like,
having
sorry.
having multiple personalities sometimes helps, doesn't it? To be
Yeah,
the
like
the role model, the mother and the father.
Eastern Europeans coming out when I'm a dad. I got the
Put
belt.
a Yeah, put a trucker cap on, or put something,
Exactly.
a jacket or something.
Yeah, it's not hard at all to put on that disciplinary hat. I'm lucky like that. Um, but we have the Big Brother program, and I've looked into them,
Hmm.
and I had an interview, and I talked to my son about it, and he said, "Mom, like I love you." He goes, "But between dad and my uncles and like my god, like everyone that's here," he goes, "I'm good." He goes, "I really feel like I have enough connection that I have a community." He goes,
Hmm.
"And I have my friends." He's like, "And I'm developing really deep friendships with like my friends and the men at work." So he goes, "I'm good." But yeah, we have that. And you know what else I find in North America when I don't know how it is in Australia, but this is something that also I find that I notice that people are just not paying attention to is children are rewarded and considered successful when they move out of the house. As soon as they finish school, they move out and they live on their own. And so their houses and their apartments sit empty while they're at work all day and they come home to a lonely apartment. And I
Mm,
think the loneliness, the isolation is just getting worse because they're away from their family. But there's so much judgment against males, even more than females, that are still living at home past a certain age. Um, like they're failures and they don't have their own place and they don't have, they don't have a certain status of having their own home or having their own place. And I just think it's all fucking backwards. Like
mm,
if you can stay at home and help take care of your parents and save your money and have a community and feel connected, have someone to go home to that loves you, that's gonna cook for
mm,
you or not cook for you, and just be happy to see you versus going home to an empty apartment with no one there. How is this success and how is this failure? Like I don't understand how people
mm,
see it. And I think that also makes it harder for North American men to get these men to go on that bridge with them on that long trip because we're so isolated and we're so far apart that, maybe grandparents and uncles are like an hour away. They're not close by like it used to be. We used to all live
mm.
together. And now I find in North America, everyone's spread apart, having their own place to live, and we're all just isolated.
Really well said.
Sorry, that was just a lot
Absolutely.
of hand motion for me. I apologize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it points to that false goal of independence, having your own, doing your own thing.
Right.
Whereas like we are all deeply dependent. And it's healthy to be dependent, to
Right.
depend on other people. That's that brings purpose.
We're built for
It
connection. We're not built for
yeah,
isolation. We die in
yeah,
isolation, people.
yeah.
We
Mm,
thrive in connection. We live. Like that's what we need to survive.
mm. So the home is about, the collection of people and your relationships to other people as well, and welcoming them in and sharing that with other people. So I think you're a deep vein of wisdom there, Kat. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I just I don't know if you're picking up on the frustration, but it's like I'm holding in all these insights because I feel that a lot of people don't see the full picture of this. And I don't even think that I see the full picture yet. I'm smart enough to know that I know nothing. I am smart enough to know that there is so much to learn that I literally know like nothing. Um, but I think that there's a lot of people that just have blinders on and are just not awake and are just not aware and they can't see these things, right?
Mm.
And it's frustrating.
A lot of people are busy. They've got jobs, they're looking after people, they don't have a lot of time, and maybe haven't really thought through in the depth of the way that you have thought through and connected all of these things in their lives.
I think a lot of that is discomfort. I think that, like we said, people will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. And I think that we are all happier not thinking about the things or not looking for things that will make us feel uncomfortable, that will make us feel like something's off and something's not right and something maybe needs to be changed, but we don't know how to change it. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
So I went to a conference last year and I was presenting and used part of Dax's video clip for To Be a Man. And I've loved listening and getting to know Dax's songs. And he's done that to Mega Remix with 10 other artists. And they're all different. Like there's a couple of women, there's a lot of different guys from backgrounds. And I played that at the start of my presentation. And it really connected to women in the audience of a range of different ages. There were grandmoms and younger women. A number of them did cry listening and watching that. And, art and music, the lyrics, it had a way of connecting that a report or a social media post won't connect. And I found that too, actually. Older women in particular really resonated when I've shared some of those video clips from Dax. And I hope he comes to Australia one day because we could really use someone like him down here.
Yeah.
He's a real inspiration. Like I've loved getting to know his background and seeing the different music that he's making. and he wears his faith really proudly on his chest. And it's a beacon, I think, for a lot of young
Mhm.
people that there's value in faith, belief, organized religion, that it can bring things to your life that secular society hasn't been fulfilling. There are gaps there, that needs that we have that can't be met by the big government state and by secular education. So, yeah, the more wholesome life. I mean, that's the path I've been on, of deepening my appreciation and um, reaching out in goodwill and trying to learn and grow, and be a better parent and a better husband.
I think he's doing his part, and leaving an impact on the world and changing it. I definitely do. And I think you're doing the same, David. Um, I I swear I could talk to you for the next 4 hours. And we'll have to split this up into like 6 podcasts, because this conversation with you is so powerful. It's so easy. I feel seen in a way that I haven't felt in a long time. I feel like you get it. I feel like you see so much of it, and you have taught me so much, and you have opened my eyes to so much more today in this very like short 1 hour conversation. I'm truly so grateful. You made me cry twice. Um, and and yeah, you just have such a beautiful and powerful way of putting these views and these perspectives and presenting them in a way that just you can't help but agree with you. You can't help but see it. And that's your gift. And I love your voice. I love what you're saying to the world. I love your message. I want to support you in any way that I can. So I'm going to post your links. In the podcast and on the posts on social media, and I will support you in any way that I can. And I hope that you
So
will come
much.
back, David, and we can have another conversation and we can tackle some more topics because God knows there's still so many left.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that. Yeah, let's go off in some different directions. And to everyone, and you, Kat, let's make a positive difference in this world. Let's make a better,
Let's do it.
healthier, more harmonious world. We can do it.
Yeah. And you know what? We can motivate each other, and just knowing that there's other people doing the same thing that we're doing makes me feel better and gives me strength, gives me inspiration. You inspire me, your words inspire me, and your book is amazing. And I think everyone should read it. So I'm going to share it with everyone. Thank you so much for your time, David.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.